And so we want to welcome Tarren Camm to the show. Welcome, my brother.
Thanks very much, Adam. It's awesome to be
And
here.
you are where in the world right now?
I am in Melbourne, Australia.
Melbourne, Australia. How hot is it there right now?
Yeah. Not at all,
Really?
actually. It'd be about 8 to 10 degrees out there. It's 7 in the morning thereabouts. So
Perfect time of the day. Perfect time of the day.
yeah, you know what? Anywhere from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. I'm a very happy man. It's a beautiful time of the day.
Well, it's also nice getting up that early because, for most of us, the world is still asleep, right? So there's no pulling on us. There's nobody, calling us or emailing us or anything. And it's kind of a nice, quiet time to kind of be with yourself, don't you think?
Absolutely, it is. And we're in a house with a 3-year-old and a puppy border collie and a cat and a parrot. So my wife and I make sure we're up at about 4:30 or 5 most mornings. We give each other half an hour space, no technology, nothing. It is a sacred time of day for us because the moment the little one's awake, the circus is awake. Game on.
So you actually shut everything else out for half an hour so you can actually get grounded with your bride.
I actually do, yeah, definitely. So even my wife and I, we give ourselves a half an hour space as well before we connect. So there's a good morning there, and then there's like, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. And what I've realized is how much better it is to approach your day that way. And with what we've been doing for a long time there, I was managing some face-to-face PT work as well, and it was a matter of falling out of bed and getting on with the day.
Right.
And the intentions that you can have for the whole day really do weigh in on that start, I believe, and just being able to create that space, that mindfulness. And since I've incorporated this, a lot has changed.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in a little bit, specifically around what you're doing professionally, but also this idea of mindfulness. But I know that, you spent some time on the line as well. So you were a chef. You worked in the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
You want to kind of give us the kind of thumbnail sketch of what you were doing and how far you progressed in your career, and yeah.
Absolutely. So I had a post up not long ago labeled "My Life as a Chef Part 1," and I was able to explain to my audience, shout out to the audience, absolute legends, just how I got into kitchens. And really, to be honest with you, I got into kitchens based on the fact I actually got into my first preference university course that had nothing to do with kitchens. And I had no head on my shoulders to pursue this course, though I fooled myself for at least 3 months. I fell into a fantastic network of people that were too much fun. That combined with not having the head on my shoulders, I needed something to fund my social life, not my university life. I fell into kitchens and started washing some pots and pans in a small town, roughly about 2 hours away from where I grew up, actually. And yeah, to be honest with you, it was great to make money and socialize.
Sure.
And then I thought, hey, I'm going to do this on the other side of Australia. Hey, I'm going to keep doing this for 2-3 years. I was just a professional kitchen hand, to be honest with you. There was one job there where I even took out a head steward position on an island, and I just loved kitchens, and I'm great with tunnel vision, Adam. I didn't really pay attention to the food being prepared around me. I paid attention to the job I had to do. And at some point traveling around Australia, I realized, hey, I should probably step up what I'm doing here and perhaps take on board what some of these chefs are telling me that I'm working with to get an apprenticeship.
Right.
And it's actually quite funny. I was in Darwin, which is the other side of the country, about 4,000 kilometers away from where I am now. And I started putting in mock applications for apprenticeships. And there was one I put an application in for where I'm like, I would consider actually going to this interview. Funnily enough, he got back to me the next day and said, when can you come here? So it was 4,000 kilometers, driven in about 4 days, and got myself down for the apprenticeship and never looked back, mate. To be honest with you, I had no idea what I was doing. I understood the organization, the structure. I think any kitchen hand that does their job properly starts to get the foundations of what a kitchen's actually about. I lost a lot of sleep on how to keep a dishwasher running. I lost a lot of sleep on how to keep things cycling, how to do things normally, and how to not get grilled. And it turned into me working in lower end pubs to start with in the apprenticeship, moving into a higher end restaurant towards the end of the apprenticeship, moving into the land of, oh my God, I'm qualified. I'm going to work for everyone and anyone. I think I had 3 or 4 jobs, which was great. I ended up finding my home in cafes. And for those that aren't aware of Melbourne's cafe culture, it's quite spot on. It's amazing.
A thing, yeah.
You have this opportunity. You have this opportunity to deliver really, really quality food at a basic fare and do some half reasonable hours. Those that think cafes are easy are those that really haven't done the 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. shifts. Absolutely amazing. So grateful that I found cafes. I ended up taking my career over to London. I opened up a Melbourne style brunch cafe over there with a fella. That was absolutely amazing. From there, I was back here and running cafes for a few years. And I made a switch into the fitness industry not too long after touching back down in Melbourne.
That's funny.
It was a bit of a full circle for me.
First off, I just want to kind of touch base around washing dishes. You know, that's where I started in the industry. I started when I was 15, washing dishes, and it didn't, you know, of course, at 15 years old, you don't know what the hell you're doing anyway. But you know, this steward position that you also applied for. So, you know, part of the mission for Chef Life Radio is also to, you know, to talk about all the positions and all the people in the industry, and from the lowest rung to the highest rung. And I share the opinion of some smart people when they say, you know, if it wasn't for great stewards, you know, we couldn't get our job done. And the fact that you were kind of focused on what you needed to do also speaks a lot to your kind of tenacity and grit, in that doesn't really matter what you're doing, but it's how you're doing. So this idea that, you know, you're gonna really apply yourself once you get to a certain level. No, man, people actually see you where you're at, and the fact that you're diligent, and someone looks at that and says, oh, maybe this guy's got some skills. I mean, he applies himself, he's diligent, you know, clean. I mean, we could use some of that. So I good on you, man. And you couldn't have got a better grounding in the industry than to start there.
Yeah, you know, I was forever grateful for it. And I am doing a little bit of a post series at the moment of a timeline of my life in the kitchen. And to start it off in Ballarat the way that I did, that was the small town. It was really tough. I lost a lot of sleep over it. I was always hanging in the balance of whether I was going to keep a job or not, because I just had no idea what was going on, mate. I'm like, cool, the dishes go in the dishwasher, and what do I do next? And then I'd get a few orders barked at me. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing in here? I have no idea how to keep this going, how to keep it structured. And once I got my head around it, well, yeah, the head got a little bit bigger, I guess. And I thought it would have been smart to jump up on this island, and that steward job, mate. Oh my God, I'm not sure if I've ever had a harder job in my life, to be honest with you. And to be taking out the head steward position there was to be working 14, 16-hour days, and the kitchen was mammoth. I went from this single compartment dishwasher in this small town to rocking up and seeing this conveyor belt beast where you could have 6 cycling through, and I was just like, what is this? This is crazy. And the same thing happened. Losing sleep. I'm going to lose my job. I'll get kicked off this island. What do I do? And somehow along the way, I just fell in love with everything that was being organized, being the fastest, being the best. And I never looked back, to be honest, mate. And the respect that the chefs had for me and the way I went about it was an amazing feeling. And I couldn't agree with you more, mate. Every kitchen stops at the kitchen hand.
It certainly does. And this island that you were working at, did they do lots of banquets as well? So you had to kind of like round up everything and make sure that the kitchen had what they needed. So you're taking care of it before they actually even need it, and then taking care of it after.
Absolutely. And the operations didn't stop there. I mean, we had the steel section, we had the pit, and then we had obviously the marching orders from the chefs. And once a week we'd have the barge delivery as well, where it was a matter of setting up all of the long railings. Workout of life, by the way. Oh my God. And we'd set that up, and I'd crush this whole delivery from the boat. And we'd end up grabbing these boxes, throwing them everywhere, going into different storage units, and oh my lord, it was absolutely crazy. And I had so much pride in getting up at 4:30 in the morning and meeting with the executive chef, and sun's just starting to come up over this beautiful place. I'm like, all right, well, there's the barge, and you can see the boat coming in, and you can see all the maintenance lads and all the tradies ready to bring it across. Game on, mate. Never had a harder job than this one, and I always look back very fondly on it. It really did lay a foundation.
And did you find that throughout your career and the different things that you've done, that this idea of you stressing about whether or not you're doing it correctly and worrying about, what's my next step? What the hell am I doing? I don't want to look bad. How can I bring it up? Has that kind of followed you around?
Yeah, it did. For a very, very long time. I even had a bit of imposter syndrome, to be honest with you, right up until when I qualified as a chef, in the sense, and I'm kind of grateful for it now. I look back, but I wasn't one of those people that woke up one day and said, I'm going to be a chef. I was never one of those. And I think that there's a real split down the middle of those that wake up with the passion, or those that get woken up via the passion, if you will. And for myself, yes, that work ethic separated me and was able to get me to where I was as a professional chef. But there was always that underlying, am I doing the right thing? And there was always that underlying, oh my God, I'm uncomfortable. How do I get comfortable?
Right. What was your family life like? Were you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Couldn't have asked.
Brothers, sisters?
Could not have asked. Yeah, I've got 3 brothers. Amazing people. My parents, I could bang on. We could do a whole hour podcast on my thoughts about my parents, to be honest. I am forever grateful for them. For myself, with the university course, I was supposed to be doing human movement and sports science. They supported me all the way through to not performing there, to getting around the country, washing pots and pans, to getting loose, to losing myself, to becoming a chef, to all the way through till now. I just cannot be more grateful for them. The work ethic and the morals that they've raised me with. I just couldn't be more grateful.
Awesome.
Mate. Fantastic upbringing.
And at what point in your career did you decide that that maybe you wanted to do something else?
Yeah, good question. So, to be honest with you, I got caught in the spider web big time. As soon as I donned the chef whites, and it was never a fairy tale, I was put on a fryer section in a pub that was also part larder, part appetizers, part everything. It was the section where everything else goes. So it was a tough one. And again, very uncomfortable, again, fearing for my job. But the moment that I picked up some rhythm there, the moment that I earned just the tiniest bit of respect from the head chef, was the moment I grabbed it and ran. And it would have been almost 10 years from that date before I started to have the inklings and thoughts to change it up. And the shift, I believe there was a foundation for the shift in towards fitness, probably from the word go, in the sense that I've had a solid fitness base all of my life. I played football seriously. I hit the gym hard. I learnt the hard way about health and how to look after yourself from a very, very young age. And there were a couple incidents throughout my career, or a couple moments where I wasn't treating myself well, Adam, whether it was just teetering with burnout or getting hooked into substances yet again, or just somewhere in between along there. And every single time I consider myself lucky, whether I was 21, 25, 27, 30, I always had the knowledge of how to use fitness as a weapon to get myself out of deep shit. And I got myself into deep shit quite a few times.
I don't think you're alone in that.
Final occasion, to be honest with you, mate, I'm just forever grateful to have fitness in my back pocket. But on the final occasion, well, it was a combination of coming out of substances and dealing with 2 years of chronic pain, and using fitness to get myself out of that trouble really gave me a revelation where I was like, I think I can help people do this. I think I can actually help people get out of pain. I can help people get strong. I think I can help people live a healthier life. And I think I need to rekindle with that guy that was 18 years old and got into his first preference university course. And maybe he's got the bloody head on his shoulders to do it this time. And instead of doing a uni course, I got my personal training certificate and that was uncomfortable, diving deep into a gym and going, okay, I've gone from doing this for a living and having a paycheck and being pretty comfortable to my first paycheck in the fitness industry, if I'm going to convert it to US dollars, was about $380 for a week. That was a scary moment. Sink or swim.
Do you want to talk about the type of chronic pain that you were in?
Absolutely. So what happened to me was I was using my body like shit, essentially. We all know the score. Punching over the benches, lazing around, knocking off work, drinking a whole lot of piss, smoking pot, chain smoking cigarettes, any option that I had to get outside. I was also in the mode of trying to get myself out of that pattern. And funnily enough, I did a little bit of a number on myself whilst in the gym. I believe this number was done from already having the wrong structure in my body, already not treating myself well. But I strained, and I say only strained, a muscle that connects from the rib to the hip. That's all I did. It was a light strain. I remember waking up, getting ready for work, leaning over the sink to expel the toothpaste mix and going, that hurts. That hurts. Something's wrong and it's deep. I'm going to go with the mantra I've gone with the last 15 years of my life and hope it takes care of itself. 2 weeks later, the pain's a little bit more dull. The pain's a little less bearable. A month later, the pain is now recurring down my left hip. It is starting to creep up my lower back. It is like there is like nerves crawling around in the lower abdomen area. Starting to get serious. Saw a physio, saw a couple other therapists, got given a couple stretches.
Right.
Got given some hydrotherapy techniques. Didn't do a lot. Ripped that muscle in the kitchen at some point. Gave it a good rip. That was tough. It knocked my hips out, my lower back, and it was basically a 2-year road to recovery once I met the right person, which would have been it was a 2-year road to recovery, a year of trial and error. And then a year after I met somebody who was a grumpy sports physiotherapist. He was mortified by the way I was living my life. I was viciously underweight. I was still smoking. I had no life in my eyes, mate. And he saw that as an opportunity to kick my ass into gear, to tell me what's what, and to show me that if I'm going to continue taking a shit on my body, I will continue to feel like a piece of that. So really, the answer was aggression. The answer was, I need to get strong. The answer was, I need to get back to my roots. This guy flogged me in the gym, on the massage table. He made my life a misery, but he also brought back the joy. And he also taught me how to respect myself again.
So it was almost like getting schooled.
To be honest, mate, this guy schooled me beyond belief. And if we want to talk about getting schooled, let's talk about the school from around 40 years ago. Where the belief systems and the things you're allowed to do as a teacher were different.
Right.
That was this guy. He is a lovely fella. I'm forever grateful for him. Whenever I see his name pop up, whenever I see him, I am absolutely full of respect and full of gratitude. It was a really, really challenging road being in kitchens and having to deal with the pain of attacking such an injury with aggression. Instead of, lengthening the muscle, relaxing, therapy, painkillers. Right. It was a really long road, but there was a point there where I started to see a bit of light. After a workout with him, I wasn't as sore. I was a bit more hungrier than usual. I was definitely smoking less. Things were on track. That was a progression. And that right there, I believe, was the seed planted to grab that young fella out of me and go, hey, you're still there, man. You're still there. You still love this. Maybe you can make a shift into doing this. And yeah, to be honest with you, man, it's a very weird place to be visiting right now. It was a really, really, really challenging time in my life.
So if this grumpy old physio actually kind of sorted you out, would you be okay with throwing his name in the circle?
Absolutely. His name was Simon McCauley. And funnily enough, He was actually the head physio of my favorite AFL football team. For those of you that don't know AFL, well, it's the Australian Football League, right? But in saying that, really, it's just in my state where most of the teams are and a couple of teams up here and there. We're not a AFL dominant country, so it's hard to know what AFL is for a lot of people. He was the head physio of my favorite team. We had that connection. He was brutal. He was honest. He was everything I needed him to be. And somewhere along the way of him kicking my ass, much like many of the head chefs and executive chefs I had, there was a turning point. There was a moment there of just getting completely ridden, completely demoralized at times with how I was treating my body, and completely exposed and constantly showing back up, constantly putting in the reps for myself. And it's turned into a friendship. He's a very
That's
lovely
awesome.
fella.
And I know you're married now and you have a child.
Yeah.
At what point during this process did you meet your wife?
Yeah, so I ended up going over to London 2000 and, oh, this is tough, this one, 2013-ish. I spent a year and a half, so I got to almost 2015-ish thereabouts, and I went to a Christmas party this Scottish fella was having, and he was working with my wife at the moment in Three, I believe, selling phones. And somehow, some way, my best friend's older brother knew this guy. This guy somehow knew to reach out to us.
Right.
We all rocked up to this party. We're in London. It's Christmas, New Year's time. And she was there. And I'd love to say the rest is history. Do you know what? The rest is history. From that moment there, we're in each other's pockets, to be honest, mate.
That's great.
We spent the next year in London together. I was running out of a visa. We initially wanted to use marriage as a tool to just help us stay together. Her parents wouldn't have a bar of it. So I found myself living in Lithuania for 6 months.
Wow, Lithuania. Very cool.
Yeah, extremely cool and very much eye-opening. An Australian boy, I'll call myself at that time, is looked at like a pretty little flower over in the East European land right next door to Russian. right next door to Russia. But we went there. They wouldn't have a word of us doing a quick marriage. We did the 3-day ceremonial marriage. We got a homestead. Vodka was breakfast. Life was beautiful. And she came over to Australia, and she has been here since, to be honest. We were supposed to get back, but COVID forbid.
Right. So she's been with you throughout this entire transformation of you getting injured and then kind of finding a road back and then deciding that you really wanted to make a contribution to the people in the industry by focusing on them as potential clients.
Absolutely. And her mum was a chef as well. Commendable chef as well. She is one of those hard-nosed women that you look at straight away and you're like, you are going to love me unconditionally, but I will never F with you, ever. I never want to be on the wrong side of this. And I remember her saying to her mum when she met me, I'm dating this chef. And she's like, please, anyone but a chef. And this is why. And went through why. And we both know why. And the culinary world knows why.
Sure.
Do you know what? Yeah, she's stuck by my side, man. She went home for a little while there for a couple of months to see her family and whatnot. But she's been in Australia for almost 7 years now. She's seen me go from heading kitchens in Australia to dealing with the chronic pain to making the transformation to being in a gym to being booted out of the gym and capitalizing on an idea that was, to be honest with you, Adam, nothing more than a slurry speech I'd make to my dad after a couple of years.
That's how things start, though. That's how things start.
Exactly. And that idea stemmed from a good place. It came from heart space. And to be honest with you, I was happy in the gyms. I was like a fish to water, to be honest. It didn't take long to build a great client base and whatnot. But COVID gave me a kick in the ass.
In what way?
And, well, I was booted out of the gym. And I had no income. I had nothing. Actually,
right. The world came to us and the world stopped.
To be honest, yeah. And look, I mean, shout out to the Aussie government. I mean, we were okay. We were supported, and we were able to get through this time. But for how long?
Right.
And when you've got a kid, and when you've got a wife, and you've got yourself, and you want to support, you need to do something. And I did. I had all my clients outdoors. No gyms open.
Awesome.
Okay, fine. I'll meet you in this creep den because it's raining tomorrow, and we'll do some kettlebell swings there. We'll do a workout there. I train clients outdoors. I blew the last of my savings on a business mentor who is still my mentor. I'm forever grateful for this person. And we buckled down. We had about $200 to our name, and we spent everything that we had and constantly made into RCM, the Real Chefs Movement, and just kept digging deep, 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 kept solving problems, kept finding new, beautiful problems the bigger that we got. And somewhere along the way, I was in a position to drop the face-to-face work and be in front of this computer and impact an industry that I have so much love for, and individuals that I'm just back at home, man.
Right.
I'm back in the trenches as chef, to be honest. I get to speak the way I want to speak, not the way I have to speak on a gym floor.
And there are some very specific issues to deal with as far as chefs are concerned in regards to, and I'm not even going to talk about health or how somebody decides to mitigate their stress, but I'm talking about the physical environment. Like you mentioned earlier about bending over a table. I took all that shit for granted. I thought that that's just the way things were in a kitchen, and that I had to change. And then I went to, we were doing an off-premise charity event at an art museum, and the local sushi guys came and they set up a table close to us. And I looked down and they're putting number 10 cans underneath the legs of the banquet table. And then they've got wooden blocks so that they're setting up their cutting boards so that their arms are at a perfect 90-degree bend. They basically changed their environment so it made it easy for them to do the work. And that was the first time I'm like, what do you mean you can do that? Like, holy shit. I mean, by that time I'd had my first back surgery, all the muscles in my stomach had basically lost all its tension. So now it's my back going, and, it's kicked my ass primarily because, as a young and energetic chef, I threw my body around with reckless abandon, because at least my story was I was always constantly trying to, run into the breach, to pull the whole thing together and move the entire team forward. But somehow there's, in those type of environments, it's all physical. And so it was easy for me to get out of shape and stress my body out. And, it's taken me a long time to try to get that back. So I totally get how the environment can kind of contribute to some of the issues that chefs have with knees, shoulders, hips. You want to talk about that?
Totally. And I think it boils down to those that are naturally gifted in the industry and can use their brain. They can use their brain. For me, I had this fitness base and I had this endless pool of energy. And I was like, okay, if I can just get this thing to bloody cooperate, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. And it took a really long time for my brain to catch up to what my body was willing to do. And much the same as you, I just threw myself around. I had no regard for posture, for awareness, for balance. I had no regard for it. And my number one strength was, I don't care how good of a chef or how good of a kitchen hand anyone is, I can be the best because I'll be the fittest, I'll be the strongest, and I'll be the stupidest with my body.
Exactly.
Yeah, mate, it's not easy to look after yourself at all. And the thing is, posture, awareness of how you're using your body, balance, fantastic. If you can achieve that while you're in the kitchen, you are a wizard. Why? Well, it's one thing to do it preparing some food. Sure, you can go on a wider stance. You can make your prep area more comfortable. You can do things in sequential order and know you're getting to the service line, know you're getting to the end of your shift, and know you're okay. But the moment you are busy, the moment you are under pressure, the moment you are 10 tickets deep, you tell me that you give a shit about your posture.
No, man, it's time to be all ass and elbows. There's no time to think about anything except, burying the guy on the expo because, you just want to keep up with the flow. So I totally get it. So
Exactly.
so currently your business is focused primarily on chefs.
Only chefs. Exactly. We have a couple ex-chefs in there still tightly related with the industry and have stepped into almost leadership roles, from the sense that they've had a great career and they want to get their stuff together and they believe in what I'm doing. So they're in there, and they're just that extra bit of accountability for the young people within the space as well, which is fantastic.
So have you found that there has been any type of resistance to culinary professionals with your message? So you're coming to them and you're saying, hey, listen, I can help you. I can help you achieve longevity in your career. I can make you feel better in your daily work. And then what's the response?
Yeah, so originally when I first started to get my message out there and promote what I was doing, I was such a friendly, fluffy, I want everyone to love me, Adam. So I'm going to write this post about how beautiful it can be for everyone. Rainbows, lollipops, rose-tinted glasses, all that shit. That was dumb. That got me nothing. The moment I started to speak my truth, the moment I started to speak of my experience, was the moment that I started to get some traction and some belief. One in myself and two from the audience. I still see resistance, absolutely, and I think it boils down to two things. One, I was 12 years in kitchens. Who am I to speak to somebody that's 25 years in kitchens, 30 years in kitchens, 40 years even? So there's a lot of that angle. Who are you to tell me that this is the way I should live my life? Who are you, babyface boy, this sort of stuff? And, you get a lot of attention that way. That's okay. But there's also another angle to it, in the sense that there's a resistance that is near permanent from what I believe the industry has been swayed to believe. And I do believe that with cooking comes the immediate label, for those that know what they're talking about, of what we've already spoken about, of just accepting it, just hardening up, just doing the job, and just shutting your mouth and getting on with it. Whether you're battling substances, whether you're battling chronic pain, whether you're imbalanced, whether you're short-tempered, whether you're depressed, you shut up and get on with the job. And that's how I was brought up in the industry.
Yeah, suck it up, sunshine. I don't have time for your problems. I have enough of my own, right? But I think now that I get a real sense that there is a shift occurring in the industry, and thank God for COVID, because I was watching this great documentary on a public access network, and it was a program about the entire year of COVID, basically when they start in China and they go all the way through each country as it started to spread. And they were talking to this guy in Colombia who worked for the government, was responsible for enforcing the treaties that had been written up between the revolutionary forces and the government. Very difficult job.
Yeah.
And he said, this is the thing about COVID. It's going to strip everything away, and we're going to see what kind of society we actually live in. And, whether it's going to be a cooperative environment, whether people are going to come together and help one another, or it's just going to cause tensions to fray. And so I'm grateful that we all had to kind of go through this in order to become aware of, strip away all the pretension and just go, okay, so this is what it is. Okay, I get it's not cool. I guess I know that there's work to be done, but at least we know what work we need to do now. And for the culinary and hospitality industry, there's been systemic problems for a long time that everybody just thought, hey, we'll just suck it up because that's the way it is. And it reminds me of when the millennials started coming into the field. Some of the older chefs would be pissed off, they're asking for too much. They want, they want to be a stakeholder. They want Fridays off, all this different kind of crazy shit. And I thought, well, when we were young, we wanted the same things too. We just didn't think that it was going to happen. So we just we shifted our perception and our expectations, and okay, I'll never have another Sunday off, and I'll probably miss my kids' birthdays. And, that's just the way it is in the industry. And just because that's the way it was doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it needs to be moving forward. I mean, the whole idea of like mental and physical health awareness and doing things daily to be able to mitigate that stuff, or at least connect with somebody and say, listen, I can see that you're struggling right now. Do you want to have a conversation?
Yeah.
And where does someone turn when they need some information, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's really well said, mate. And as much as COVID's been a heartbreaker, and it has been for so many businesses, and it continues to be. So over here in Melbourne right now, we've just reopened after a 2-week circuit breaker.
Right.
That's what they
circuit
call
breaker.
it. All businesses shut, cases down, everything opens again. In theory, it works. What's it doing? What is it doing to businesses and businesses that are just trying to get their feet back on the ground? On top of that, we probably had a bit of a slip up, and I think it's a similar situation over in the States in that people were looked after during the time of being unemployed financially by the government. Chefs saw something else. They saw that maybe these hours, maybe X amount of exploitation, maybe what's normal in the industry needs a new freaking normal. And we've had a mass exodus, and that's felt everywhere, and it's heartbreaking. But the only thing that really gives me any solace in the whole situation is that something's got to give.
Right.
And hospitality, the service industry in general, outside of chefs, bartenders, waitresses, waiters, etc., it's been exposed to a point that it has to change. And as much as it's a fight now, as much as it's heartbreaking to see some of the guys I'm working with are doing 80 to 100 hour
it's
weeks.
Brutal, man.
They are absolutely on their last legs. But there's hope that there's change, that there's reform, and that there's some more basic rights brought into an industry.
More equitable and sustainable. More equitable and sustainable, man, for sure. It's got to be for everybody. You know, the Burnt Chef Project, which is based out of the UK, they're doing an incredible amount of informational gathering and studies. And what they've been able to discover is that of all the folks who have left the industry, there's like 40% of them that are considering coming back at some point. Like once you're in that space and once you're in that environment and the connection that you feel, not only with what you're doing with your hands, but also your heart and everybody that you're around, that's hard to replace in any other industry. You know, I mean, you can go out and try to, you know, be a project manager and do all these other things because the skill sets scale. Yet, you know, when your heart's in the kitchen, your heart's in the kitchen. I tried to leave, God damn it. I ended up coming back.
To be honest with you, mate, there are still elements. I barely have time to cook these days.
Right.
So when I do, it's a special time. But there are times where I am just like, shit, I could get the wires back on.
Sure.
My God, I could pull those knives out. This would be great. And we actually have, within the work I'm doing, we do a couple group Zooms. So there's one in particular at around 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Time where we all jump on together. And this one's targeted at the chefs that I work with being over in States and Canada. And it's a really good time for everyone to get on board. They just finished service. So they're able to rock up. And what's quite funny is a lot of the Australians and Kiwis still make it to this call, except it's 2 p.m. So what are they doing?
They're getting
they're in the fucking kitchen.
Yeah, they're in the kitchen getting ready for service, right?
So we're here doing a coaching call, having a laugh, hitting some key topics, getting people G'd up. And half of the Zoom meeting is people running around in kitchens and chiming in every now and then and popping their heads over. And do you know what? That is an excellent feeling. And that is where it capitalizes on what you've just had to say. I look at those guys running around in the kitchen, smashing out their service, getting over for a quick hello and just go, my God, you look happy. And I would be happy to be there with you.
Yeah. I mean, I love the industry. I love the people that are in it. I have some things to say about it and some things that I'm working to shift for everybody's benefit, because basically I want everybody to win, not just the select few. But this other idea about, you know, if you've got guys who are trying to set up their line before service and they're on your Zoom call, that must mean that, you know, you're doing something right. right? This is an excellent time to have your type of conversations about, listen, we got to think about how we're going to be able to do this long term, how we're taking care of our bodies and our minds, because, you know, I hate the conversation that it's a young man's game. You know, that pisses me the fuck off, that, you know, I could only really be effective, you know, in my 20s and 30s and my 40s. And after that, I have to get regaled to, you know, teaching position or some other bullshit like that, because I know I can still fucking throw down. I know I can fucking kill on a fucking saute station all night long. But, you know, 21 days in a row, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So it's a perfect time to have these conversations. Yeah.
Absolutely. And shout out to the guys that do switch us on during that time. Do you know what? Instead of tunes, instead of whatever else is going on, if they can't pay attention, if they're getting rammed consciously or subconsciously, they're still hearing it. And every now and then, there's nothing better than seeing them get a break, seeing them finish off the tickets, and seeing them all just come over. And it may be that one very client I'm working with watching 2 or 3 other chefs over the shoulder having a peek. And there's a real pay it forward notion that we're having at the moment. And what I did last week was I actually grabbed one of the chefs I work with. He is from Madison in, how do you say it, mate? Wisconsin?
Madison,
right?
Wisconsin, yes.
It's always a tongue twister, that one for me. Wisconsin. I think it's because I try and put the N before the S, and that turns it into an S for me. Have a go at that one for me. So anyway, he took a call last week, and the reason I made him take the call was because he's an executive across 2 venues. He has fallen in love with this journey. He has embodied absolutely everything that RCM is about, that I'm about, to a degree where I just can't even fathom what this space would be like without him. This is the kind of person he's become and the kind of support he's become in that space. He is pushing this mantra onto everybody that he works with. He is calling people out on their bullshit and saying, hey, maybe we can try this. He is being suggestive, polite, and emphatic, not autocratic. So he is being polite to the people that are taking a shit on their body and going, since I started doing this, I've felt so much better. Since I started to actually eat breakfast, since I started to cut back my cigarette intake, since I started to actually be mindful of how I'm using my body, he is pushing this on. So I actually pressed to him last week and said, you're taking this call. This call's called Being the Influence. And we spoke about the ripple effect that we can have within the industry, in the fact that maybe there's one chef that I'm working with that's in a brigade of 30 other chefs. And can you spread that awareness? Can you call out a bit of bullshit? Can you create a team vibe where you guys are looking after each other, taking care of yourselves? And I think you've said it very, very well. Love to remember it. I read up on your website pretty hard last night. But it's more about family than it is about
fuck
off.
you. Yeah, more family and less fuck you.
More family, less fuck you. And I love that. I do. I was up a little bit too late.
I know, it's okay.
Website last night. I tell you what.
But see, that's interesting, the way that you're actually, you know, if you're working with the leaders, then the leaders have an ability to influence their particular sphere of influence, right? And speaking of my own experience, I can't tell you how many times I've told people, roll your shoulders back, right? Because they're all hunched over. And and I'd love it if you could kind of run down for me 3 or 4 or 5 of the core tenets of RCM that you think are most important as far as the hospitality industry is concerned.
As far as pillars and how I operate, it's all down to this. This is stage number 1.
So you're talking about your
what
mind.
I learned throughout the times. Yeah. What I sorry, I'm not
That's
on camera.
Right. You're on camera, but we're
there we go.
It's okay. Tarren is pointing to his mind.
Oh my god, that's like the sign language
That's cool.
equivalent at the moment. So for me, the amount of times I tried to get it together, the amount of times I did what I should to no amends was epic. My lord, I cannot tell you how many times I tried and failed, because the number one thing wasn't dealt with. What's wrong? It's not training and nutrition, is it? Really? It's going to help you. It's not doing the mobility to get yourself out of pain if you're suffering upstairs. It's also just being able to have clarity and certainty. So the first thing that I preach is just getting your mind right, becoming aware of its patterns, becoming aware of who it is that's driving this vehicle that is your body. So what I do for all of the chefs that first come in, we do a clarity week and we have a clarity workbook. They go into a mindset portal. We talk about habits. We talk about stories. We talk about belief patterns. We talk about just being aware of that internal dialogue, being able to call things out, being able to get honest with yourself, being able to figure out your actual starting point, not where you want your starting point to be. So the first thing is just getting clarity on the situation, where you are, where you want to be, detaching from the outcome and going, okay, how do we reverse engineer this? From there, we're able to take action. Once a chef feels like they understand their situation in full, they understand the habits that are serving them, the habits that aren't serving them. And I have some people come into this space that are completely fantastic human beings and just want to tidy their life up a little bit.
Right.
They go through this stage quite quick. Then we have some other people that are in the woods a lot upstairs and need to recite over this book and need to recite over why they're doing this journey. But if you don't have a reason and if you don't understand where you're starting, you're lost from the word go. You can train the house down, you can eat well, you can do some posture awareness, some mobility. It's not going to get you anywhere without intent and without the right energy. So I get them to channel upstairs first. It's one of the biggest things for me. From there, it is about implementing schedule. So I spend an hour onboarding the chefs, and I have not had one onboarding call that is similar at all. All right, mate, so tell me, what's your hours? Split shifts, straight shifts, graveyards, where are you at? What are you doing? What kind of level of food? What kind of days off? No days off? Okay, cool. Let's do this. Oh, yeah, 3 weeks on, 1 week off? No worries, we're in the mines. It's all over the place. Schedule overhaul, clarity, certainty. Start slotting in the little bits that can serve them. It's not about training the house down or eating perfectly. It's then about baby steps. And it has to be. Look at how we started in the industry. We were washing plates, keeping a dishwasher cycling. We eventually progressed into maybe making a dip or cutting some food, thinking it's pretty cool. Look at yourself however many years later and what you've achieved. Same approach for health and fitness and wellness of a chef. Here are the workouts. Here are the mobility protocols. Here is the nutrition guideline. Here's how we're going to slot this in one step at a time, baby steps. You're not going in the deep end. You're doing this slowly. You're doing this so that you can have positive repetition and build a belief that you can do this. Some of the guys enter into the program doing 10-minute workouts, doing 2 walks a week, making more conscious health decisions, rocking up to a group call, baby steps, just baby steps. And from there, we look to build your career. That's what I call it, because it's the same timeline as being a chef, in that you progress slowly and surely. We look at building your career in health, and we slowly but surely tweak it. We have weekly reflections, weekly accountability check-ins, and we make sure that they feel as if they're getting the ticks. They feel as if they're getting the positive repetition. I am an absolute fiend for torturing people with benefit. I love putting people through absolute pain to pull out of their miseries. I can't flick that switch until there's a foundation built, until the baby steps are made. For every chef that I've worked with, I understand how unique it is to deal with each and every individual. There is no cookie cutter system. There is no single one protocol that anyone follows. However, mindfulness, certainty, action, repeat. Over and over and over again. The certainty grows, the action gets more challenging. I've had some guys come in that are doing, like I said to you, 10-minute circuits here and there. There's one chef that is now gone from doing something like this. He's now 4 times a week in the gym, loves boxing, loves going for a run, absolutely killing it in the kitchen, the team and the venue. I think they would maybe give me a hug because he was the grumpiest man in the world, and he is just killing it at work, at home, happy, energy, and realizes service can be done with a smile.
Tarren, the things that you're bringing up to me as you're describing the program, it seems like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the physical part of it is basically just an excuse in order to do a lot of this deeper work. You know, you talk about certainty. There's got to be confidence. There's got to be, the knowledge that, even though it might be difficult, that you can actually persevere if you put in the work. All these things which have got to be, applicable over every single part of their life and not just necessarily on the physical. But that's not necessarily the way that you pitch this program, right?
No, it's not. And to be honest with you, I mean, my expertise is human movement. My expertise is being able to provide healthy guidelines and to help these people to be certain with themselves and take action that benefits them. Unfortunately and fortunately, as a coach, as a personal trainer, as a previous chef, you find out a lot of things about their life. You listen to a lot of stuff. Some stuff you're not necessarily qualified to give advice on, and nor would I ever. However, I got to know that stuff, because that's the stuff that's stopping you from taking the action I want you to take. How do we deal with those deeper level things that perhaps a counselor or a psychologist should be taking care of? Well, in my eyes, there is nothing more powerful than multiple perspective. I can give perspective based on you taking action that serves you. However, there is nothing more powerful than having 45 to 50 chefs from around the world together on a Zoom call, and we're all just shooting the shit together. We're all speaking from experience, different walks of life, different parts of the world. And as much as I believe movement is medicine, the main medicine here is the way that these guys have wrapped around each other as a family.
The community.
Something as simple as a post, hey, guys, I'm dealing with this at the moment. I don't know how to do it. Hey, I'm stepping into a leadership role and I'm completely shitting my pants. How would you guys approach this? And to wake up in the morning and to open up this group and to see the support, see the camaraderie, see the teamwork, see the love and passion that they've got for each other. Freaking unbelievable. And that's where the magic is in my eyes. It is an online kitchen, and we're all in there together. And we constantly make a joke of the disaster and success we could have if we were in a kitchen together.
Well, it sounds like you've built an amazing community. And I, for one, am just so, I'm one of your biggest fans, man. So I think the work that you're doing is essential and imperative. And, using the physicality as an excuse to enter into these other realms around mindset and mindfulness. Everybody needs their office, their starting space. So the fact that you're able to conjoin these to be able to produce such fantastic results for these guys, good on you, man. Good on you.
Thank you so much, mate. I really appreciate you having me on. And I just appreciate anyone that is supporting, that is a backbone, that is going, hey, what you're doing is real, man. Because for every person out there that's giving you a nice little nudge in the right direction, there's also the equal and opposite. Right. And yourself with what you're doing right now, with what we've done for most of our life, the mantra is persevere. And it makes it that little bit better when you're surrounded by positive people and you've got a positive environment. And there is nothing better than seeing the likes of yourself. There's a few other characters out there really benefiting the industry at the moment. And it's got to keep going. And as much as I understand COVID's a disaster, it's a disaster that has exposed an industry that must change and is changing. And I'm a big believer that the positivity is rising to the top at the moment, and that there are true leaders and there are some true beliefs that can be instilled in this industry. It's in a transformation of its own. Maybe we should take the before picture right now, because the after one's awesome, isn't it?
I think that's a great idea. And to me, it's a huge opportunity right now. And unlike anything that we've ever been able to, that any of us have seen in our lifetime, but certainly as a tradition and as a craft, man, we could shift a lot of stuff. And not probably not get everything done, but we can put enough stuff in motion that gives people the confidence that they can make this a career and not have to fear for themselves, or or that they're going to be taken advantage of, because we'll have sorted all that shit out by then.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And one of the most important parts of what you said there is the big smile and the laugh right there as well. You're a positive man. You've got some fantastic energy. We need more of this, and it needs to be heard around the world.
Thanks, Tarren. I appreciate you being here. Hold on one second.
Appreciate you having me, mate.